Greetings, I'm going to quickly go through the process of setting up character clothing and assets in Character Creator. You can import clothing and assets, but they're not going to move well with the character if at all. You need to transfer the weight of the character to the items, or in the case of accessories, you need to parent them to a specific bone. For a sword, you'll want to parent the object to the hand in which it will be used. This is effectively the equivalent of weighting an object at 100% strength to the bone. And at 100% weight, the object won't deform, but it will only move when the bone moves. Clothing often needs to bend with the character, even in cases of partially rigid items. Transferring skin weights to items will achieve this. Often clothing will have influences from several bones and parts of the body, and the art of skin weight painting is determining things like influence and fall off for each of the areas that influence the deformations. If something is rigid or partially rigid, you need to examine the main influences of the deformation. If you have a breastplate armor, for example, you might want 75% or more of the influence to come from the spine 2 bone, which is the chest bone. Then sprinkle some other weights onto nearby bone influences. If you have leather armor, you can spread some of the weights a bit more evenly, while still allocating most of the weight to the chest or abdomen. For hair, use the create hair function and use a preset. If you assign conformable regions, you cannot weight the item. So I will leave it off as I want control over the weights. When skin weighting most items, look at where the bone is and where the item is. When the bone moves, how do you want it to deform? If you want heavy bone influence, you'll want to put more weight in that area. If you want a sharp or rigid deformation, you want a harsh transition between the weights, not a smooth gradient. Once you understand this concept, the rest of it is just learning the tools and how to achieve that. Generally, you want to be in the bind pose, as that is a reference point for all animation. Alternatively, you can transfer the weights in T-pose if you're trying to manage the transfer of skin weights for certain types of clothing. There's no rule, of course, this is just my advice. Now that your character's clothing has some weights, you'll need to apply some animations and see how much you need to refine them. The main problem area I see is the skirt, which will have influences from the legs, pelvis, and waist. If you right-click on a bone in the skin weight painting mode, it will select the bone group for you to adjust. While it's not always possible, you always want to aim for the least amount of intersection clipping. If areas of the clothing start to poke through as you're painting, it is usually a sign that you're either weighting in the wrong direction or even adjusting the wrong bone group. Think of this like the 3 little bears. You don't want too hot or too cold, but the right balance between the extremes. One caution, some bones are not meant to be weighted for Character Creator standard characters. The hip bone, for example, should have 0 weights for clothing. That also includes the upper arm, forearm, thighs, and calves. Instead, for the arms and legs, you want to paint the associated twist bones. For example, upper arm twist 1 and 2. So where it says CC_base_L_thigh, that bone should have 0 weights. If you get an error when you enter the skin weighting mode, it usually means that there's weights on the wrong bones. If weights start to drift towards bones that shouldn't be weighted, often what it'll do is select all the vertices and apply 0 weights. Often that will fix the problem because if the program sees that there's weights there, it is more likely to assign more weights there. If it sees that there are no weights there, it'll generally exclude weights from being placed there in the first place. The animation player is invaluable for this process. If you play an animation and you see the character's clothing start to deform incorrectly, you can immediately stop the player and adjust the weights based on that frame. So a lot of the process is just playing the animation player and adjusting things that you see are incorrect. Thanks for watching, and if anyone is interested in orc themed content, I'll be releasing an orc mixer pack in the near future.